These are fantastic. I absolutely love them, and you maybe shouldn't buy them. It makes sense, trust me. This is the Mizuno Alpha 2 made in Japan, which comes in at an absolutely eye-watering €340. However, first hack of the day, don't buy them at full retail from anywhere. Go and check out Tokyo Football. If you're a regular viewer of the channel, I plug Tokyo Football all the time. I do not get paid if you buy from Tokyo Football, but you will save yourself an absolute ton of money on these. Something I also get asked a lot about buying from Tokyo Football is about the import cost. Now, I cannot guarantee what your import cost will be. However, I did keep track of the import for these boots so I could tell you, and it was a grand total of €16. So go and check out Tokyo Football if you want a pair of these and save yourself a ton of money. However, we will be reviewing these as if they are a €340 football boot, because that is what Mizuno seems to want to price them at where I am, which is absolute madness. Yes, they are made in Japan, which basically means that they're put together with a higher level of quality. They are lasted for longer, so they are going to supposedly have a better shape. They're going to be a bit more durable. But is that worth €340? That is the question. So let's talk about all the reasons that I do love these, a couple of reasons that I don't, before I point out exactly what I think you should or shouldn't buy. So this has a very different and yet somehow similar upper to the previous generation that I have here. They have been designed in a very similar way with a multi-layer heat press situation going on. However, there is not really a debate that the old Alpha 1 is definitely a bit softer. Never mind a bit, it's probably considerably softer, and it has more texture to it. Now, this, despite being a little bit stiffer and being a little bit smoother, overall, I prefer. Now, I love the touch in the ball and the stability in this boot. I think it's next level compared to the Alpha 1. The reasons are that it is just more pingy. There's a real old school synthetic vibe ping off this boot that I absolutely adore. And the way that this heat press upper along with this cage are working together, it just means that the structure through the midfoot of this boot particularly is just unbelievable. If I plant hard and push off, this boot goes absolutely nowhere. I feel secure, and we haven't even started talking about the lockdown and zero glide liners yet. I adore the touch, the feel, and the stability that this upper brings you, and I think all of those are better than what you got on the Alpha 1. But there is a little bit of preference here. The Alpha 1 is a little bit more textured, whereas the Alpha 2 is a little bit more grippy. So it's kind of like a little bit more sticky. So there's a big difference there. The Alpha 2 being that little bit stiffer, definitely more pingy, definitely more structured through the midfoot. The Alpha 1 being a little bit more free, a little bit more soft, and definitely less structured. So you can start to go on a level of preference as to which one you want to pick up. My personal preference in this area is definitely the Alpha 2. But do be aware, that is of course personal preference. Take the information I'm giving you, apply it to you, decide what it is that you would prefer. We won't make a whole other section for the touch. We've kind of covered it in the upper there. Barefoot, pingy, super direct. If that's your vibe, this is just chef's kiss. We're going to move straight on to talk about the lockdown, because there is an element of the upper build that influences the lockdown. Of course there is. Like, that was a stupid statement. I was trying to get to talk about the liner and I made a ridiculous statement. we'll just keep going. The liner is the Zero Glide liner, which is essentially Mizuno's kind of grippy liner, where you can actually see it quite well in these laces. You see how you've got two different colors. One of those is a grippy element that holds onto itself. It makes really fantastic laces. You got Zero Glide through the rear of the heel in this, as well as the Zero Glide sock liner. So this really does a great job of holding your feet in place. However, there wasn't any Zero Glide through the front section of the boot. It stops in the heel, and you didn't have any on the tongue either. Get that back in there. Here, Mizuno have gone absolutely Zero Glide mad, and I love it. So you've got Zero Glide backing the heel, and you've got Zero Glide running all the way down through the boot. Your feet are going nowhere. Now, this is a pretty intense sensation, I'm not gonna lie. And even putting the boots on because of that Zero Glide, particularly if you're using, for example, grip socks, can be a little bit more of an effort, and your socks can get stuck, and it can take you a second to really adjust yourself into place because there's just no smooth surface to, ironically, glide into. You are secure at all times on all sides. Now, I think it's amazing, but again, personal preference. Is that what you want, or would you prefer something which has less of that available? I think it's great. Now, of course, that adds a huge amount to the feeling of being secure and locked in the boots. I wore these wearing grip socks like that was necessary. It was insane. Then you take what I was saying a second ago about all of the stability through the midfoot of the boot. That, of course, leads to a very locked in, secure feeling. And then the upper itself being that little bit stiffer, that adds to a little bit of lockdown because the whole boot doesn't really move. Then you have this tongue system. So you've got the floating tongue that sits into the boot, and you can adjust the laces with a really deep lacing system and just get it pulled really tight to secure your foot in place. The lockdown in these is madness. It's an absolute madness. If you want to be locked into your football boots at all points, just buy these. It's amazing. And don't get me wrong, the lockdown on the Alpha 1 was incredible. This is better. Like, it's not like this needed more lockdown. So if you like these and you're like, oh, this has a load of lockdown, I'm happy with it, you don't need to go out and buy the Alpha 2. It just has more, and it almost feels like it has more for the sake of having more. Like, it's like, oh yeah, here we go. I can't remember did Andrew make this comment on the podcast and I've just stolen it? I don't know. The Spinal Tap, we've turned it up to 11. Pointless, but this actually does go up to 11 in terms of lockdown, and I adore that. All of that lockdown with that pingy barefoot feel, all of the stability in the boot, it's a really great combination. And you might be thinking, you told me not to buy these, and all you've done is rave about how much you love different areas of them so far. Well, yes, that's true, but the bad will come. But not yet. Let's talk about the heel. So the heel here has been slightly refined from the previous generation. It's slightly tighter, slightly more sculpted, and the little tab at the back has also been slightly redesigned. And for me, again, the heel here, the lockdown in the heel, the comfort in the heel is actually slightly better, even if it did take me not long, but I'd say maybe 20 minutes to just get used to it. There was something about it, I kind of had to like settle myself into it, and that did take about 20 minutes. It's been fine after that. That could be a Zero Glide liner thing, but it did take me a little while to just get in there. But it's very soft. There's absolutely no hot spots. You've got this amazing external heel counter, the same as on the previous generation, and it's a great heel. Mizuno do great heels. They're one of the best on the market, and this is really good. And we're still not at the negative stuff. Let's talk about the outsole. Now, the reason I have the boot open like this is because I want to kind of show you the Carvo insert if I can. So the FG variation of the Alpha 2, the same as the Alpha 1, has a Carvo insert that runs from here to here. Now, Carvo is a plastic-based carbon fiber-like material, which gives the boot a really impressive amount of spring back. Now, I will be honest, I don't know why, I just think they are basically very similar, but because this is less stiff, so the Carvo has been made thinner, so it's not as stiff as on the Alpha 1. I don't really mind it either way. I probably do prefer the extra stiffness in the Alpha 1. But the bigger thing for me was that because this is less stiff, and I did find myself putting a bit more pressure through the boot, I did find myself maybe wanting the bend point to maybe come up a little bit. Like, I almost felt like I wasn't quite on my toes as much as I wanted to get as much purchase in the ground, because it starts to really adjust where it bends back here, where I personally like a boot that kind of bends up here. It's just a personal preference thing, I think. And I think it was more noticeable because the Carvo is now less effective is the wrong term. It's just less intense. So I was just very aware, especially as I first started wearing them, that the bend was a little bit further back in the boot than maybe I would want as I put pressure down. So I put pressure down and I wanted the boot to start to bend here, and it actually started to bend back here, which is a less natural feeling for me. Something I didn't notice as much in the Alpha 1, because you're not applying, like, that same amount of pressure just doesn't bend the boot as much because there's so much more force underneath your foot. Point that I wanted to make, it's not a huge deal. Now, these are a great FG and AG option in my opinion. They are a little on the aggressive side at points, but really a good option all around. Nice and durable, very, very stable. And again, I've said this a lot recently, but a boot where the sole plate and stud pattern does match the upper quite nicely. There's no disconnect here. They do very, very nicely. Now, yes, as always, somebody is going to complain that there is not enough aggressiveness through the forefoot of this boot with these triangular studs, with them not being super long. But for me, I think it's great. I think it's a really, really good outsole. Yes, you could ask for more aggressiveness on a speed boot, but you get what you get with Mizuno, and I don't think it's bad, and I think it's plenty aggressive. I think it's very stable, and I think it's very comfortable, which is a key to most Mizuno boots, is that they are incredibly comfortable. So let's talk about that. The shape, the fit. I do want to give a massive shout out to all of the Boot Wizard members who are supporting the channel. It's a very small amount each month, and it allows you early access to all of my videos, usually 6 to 8 weeks in advance, as well as massive discounts off some of the best grip socks that I endorse. Things like 25% off with the Advantage grip socks, the Technigrip grip socks, and 20% off with Apex. If you do want to become a Boot Wizard member, please hit the link down in the top pin comment or in the description, or there's a little join button right there. If you have any questions, please let me know. And all of my members, you are hugely appreciated. You really are keeping the channel going, because this is very expensive when boots cost 340 euros. As I just said, this is a super comfortable football boot, and that, as always with Mizuno boots, is mainly down to the fact that the boots themselves are just designed around really superior lasts. The shaping of the boots is always good. They're made with great materials. There's never any hot spots. It's just a really comfortable football boot, and I cannot stress how comfortable this is. Now, it is not, in my opinion, because of this change in the upper, as comfortable as the previous generation, because it just doesn't have that softness. So you definitely sacrifice some of that softness and some of that comfort in order to get this slightly more aggressive, more structured feel. Again, personal preference. You decide which one that you would like. with that said, now here is an area where I'm not necessarily a fan of a change that's been made. So let's get the two boots together. And you can see that there is a change in shape in the toe box between the two boots here. So the Alpha 1 has a lower profile, slightly more pinched toe box, and it's the lower volume in the Alpha 1 that I am really missing here. So if I put these side by side, you should be able to see that there is just way more volume all across the top of the boot here. It's not necessarily just the toe, but the whole top of the boot just has more volume in it. You can combat any volume with adjustments through the midfoot, but this area here you don't have it, which means that I personally had a whole heap of kind of dead space over my toes just here. So my big toe was fine, and then everything else, there's just a bunch of dead space just here, which I really didn't like. Now, I did speak to Andrew, the Lockhart Boot Blog, about this, and nearly everybody he's spoken to has basically said that they prefer this, that they think this extra bit of volume is beneficial, they find it more comfortable, they're just happier with it. So bear that in mind, and then again, use your own judgment. Is something like that something that you want, or is that going to be a problem for you? So the extra bit of volume just over here is... it's the worst thing about the boot for me. It doesn't have hugely detrimental impacts on performance, but I hate having so much dead space just above my toes. Now, I do want some room in there, but I don't want so much room that I feel like I could get a finger in there if I could actually like shove a finger in the side. It's a lot of volume. Of course, it's going to depend on your foot shape as well, but that for me is a little bit of an issue. I had no dead space anywhere else in the boot, through the arch, anywhere like that. All fit me and was nicely sculpted. That's just a bit of a problem for me. Some of that does lend itself to a discussion about the sizing. So these two boots are exactly the same size. They are both a US 8, UK 7. And if I put these side by side, hopefully you can see that the Alpha 1 does run that little bit longer. And the way that the boot seems to be built as well means that the Alpha 2 just comes up a little bit straighter and pulls back, whereas this kind of sculpts down and to more of a point. So both of those things, just the general length and the design, means that you have more length in the Alpha 1. Now, the Alpha 1 for me, as much as these are a US 8, I should have gone down half a size in the Alpha 1 FG. I tried to go down half a size in the Alpha 1 AG. This was a mistake. They fit differently. I didn't need to go down half a size in the AG. I was a fool. Anyway, these down half a size. For me, the Alpha 2 is a true to size boot. So US 8, UK 7, what I would normally buy in, for example, a Nike boot, 260 millimeters. That's the way to go. Now, there is a tiny bit of room on the end of the boot for me. I'll have some images up on the screen, but that isn't enough for me to go down half a size. And yes, if I went down half a size, it might also combat some of that extra volume that I have across the top of the boot, but I would be too cramped, I would be too uncomfortable going down half a size in this boot. So my recommendation to you is that you go with your regular size, your regular Nike size, for example, in this boot in order to get the best fit for you. In terms of width, this is a Mizuno made in Japan boot, so there is plenty of width through here. I think if you have a wide foot, you're going to be absolutely fine. You've already know about that high volume through the toe box. There's a good amount of width through there as well. I think if you have a wide foot, these are going to be great for you. And while I do think there is a little bit more width than the previous generation, which I thought was a really fantastic boot for maybe all foot types, I still do think if you have a narrower foot, these should fit you okay. There is enough adjustability there to be able to pull the laces tight and around your foot. Speaking of laces, I definitely want to quickly mention the fact that I'm pretty disappointed with the quality of lace that Mizuno have put into here. Now, I have the Zero Glide laces in here, which you add extra, which are absolutely fantastic. But the stock laces that come in this are actually pretty bad for a 340 euro boot. I wouldn't be upset on, say, a 200 euro boot or something like that, but for 340 euros, I expected better. They're laces, they work, but when you're paying that much money, you might want something a little bit better. So I told you at the start, these were fantastic, but you maybe shouldn't buy them. And I stand by that. They are fantastic. I hope I've explained to you how I think they're great, along with a couple of different issues. However, are they so great and so much better than the Alpha 1 that you need to drop all of your money on this when you can get these on sale? Again, check out Tokyo Football, they have some on sale. I think the answer is quite simply no. The Alpha 1 on sale is the better option because you get so much of what the Alpha 2 does. It doesn't have some of the drawbacks, and if anything that I've kind of pointed out today appeals to you and speaks to you, then the Alpha 1 could be the way to go for that softer upper, the slightly different fit, the less volume. The Alpha 1 is a phenomenal football boot. The Alpha 2 is a phenomenal football boot. But when the Alpha 2 is so much more expensive than the Alpha 1 and doesn't justify the price difference, well, then you can't really recommend it as a must buy. Is it going in my bag? Absolutely. Am I going to use it regularly? Hell yes. Does it suit me beautifully with that pingy, barefoot, slightly synthetic-y touch? Oh, I love it. But this is a review channel to try and help you buy the best thing, and you could probably save yourself a lot of money with the Alpha 1. I do have an Alpha Elite review coming as well, which is their first tier takedown, around 200 euros. So get subscribed if you want to pick that up. And you can pick up my Alpha 1 review so you can really make your decision by clicking this video right here.